Hello, dear listener. Welcome to a ridiculous royal law, a kingdom where tears are not allowed, no frowns allowed. This is not fiction, this is royal policy, a kingdom where every mouth must smile. Even pain wears lipstick and grins wide. In the Kingdom of Everjoy, smiles ruled all. Not love, not truth, only teeth and cheer. No sadness dared cross the royal garden. No sulking at dinner. No weeping in alleys. If your cat died, you still waved cheerfully. If your house burned down, you smiled through ashes. Even funerals had cupcake buffets and balloons. Because the king, his cheerful majesty Clavicle III, declared it law, smile or stone jail. And when he said smile, he meant it. A full grin, 8 teeth minimum, dimples encouraged, chuckles advised, tears forbidden. Enforcement was firm. Guards wore mirrors on helmets. If your reflection didn't smile back, that was treason. That was life in stone, literal stone. The stone jail was granite gray and endless. Prisoners called it the Cold Happy Hotel. Why? Because even there, they had to smile. Tragedy? Too bad. Wife left you? Smile. Laugh politely. Wave like nothing happened. Lost your job? Buy confetti and keep dancing. Father died? You'd better giggle at the grave. The rules were strict, the guards were stricter. One old lady sneezed without smiling. Vanished. Some say she sneezed in lowercase. Shameful. National holiday. The mandatory grin parade. Every year, the king hosted a massive march. Thousands gathered, cheeks cramping with national pride. Floats shaped like molars, balloons shaped like teeth. Even the statues were chiseled mid-laughter. So begins the tale of one lonely man. A man who couldn't smile anymore. His name was Finley. Sad name, isn't it? He had the saddest eyes in Everjoy. And one day, they nearly cost him everything. Why? Because he frowned. Just once, in public, with witnesses. During breakfast, he was chewing toast and forgot to grin. A moment of silence. Then, alarm bells, whistles blew, birds screamed, grandmothers fainted. Guards came, smiling, of course, with batons. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, aren't we? To understand Finley's crime, we must go back. Back to when Everjoy became ever-smiling, and how a kingdom's joy became a prison. One grin at a time, long before the parades. Before the law began. Before confetti was currency, frowns became crime. There was a castle echoing with silence, and a queen who could not bear. Year after year, she cried alone nightly. Doctors arrived, herbs boiled, curses were blamed. The kingdom waited, breath held, hope thin. A king without heir was dangerous business. Then, one spring morning, it happened finally. She screamed so loud it cracked windows. 12 midwives rushed. One fainted on arrival. The child arrived with fully formed teeth. Yes, teeth. 8 gleaming baby-white incisors. Not a cry, not one blink. Only a wide, eerie, unnatural smile appeared. The room froze. The queen trembled slightly. "Is he smiling?" asked one nurse nervously. "Smiling? He's grinning like the devil himself." They named him Clavicle. No one questioned why. Maybe it sounded royal, or strange enough. By age 2, he was banned funerals. Mourners complained of his giggles during mourning. By age 4, he led parades proudly. He threw flowers laughing to scared peasants. "Isn't he adorable?" said villagers in unison. At age 6, he outlawed bedtime completely. "Why sleep," he said, "when laughter awaits?" At age 7, he painted over graves, smiley faces on tombstones with yellow paint. When court painters hesitated, they vanished silently. No one questioned royal art again, ever. At 8, golden braces enhanced his dimples. He banned mirrors that didn't reflect joy. He exiled parrots for repeating sad sighs. By 10, his power was absolute, unmatched. King and queen were background figures only. Servants bowed low, cheeks sore from smiling. They smiled until their faces bled openly. One guard dislocated his jaw during celebration. He was awarded a medal. Another parade. "Laughter is law," young Clavicle proclaimed loudly. "Joy is not feeling, it is duty." Nobles nodded, peasants obeyed, priests dared not. A bishop frowned once. He vanished permanently. His replacement giggled, clapped, and bowed constantly. Schools replaced math class with smile training. Children were graded on visible tooth count. Best smilers earned butter, blankets in winter. At 12, Clavicle built statues of himself. Not wisdom, not courage, just smiling faces. One statue outside bakeries, one above gates. Visitors thought it was parody at first, then they stayed, then smiled, or disappeared. One traveler asked, "Why must I smile?" A child replied, "Do you like bones?" Clavicle grew. His voice stayed high-pitched. He rhymed speeches, giggled between royal decrees. Each new law had cake and confetti. Taxes were paid through dance on stage. Executions had backup singers and choreography. "Treason," he said, "is unhappy group timing." He jailed an orchestra for playing dirges. They played one at his hamster's funeral. By 15, his smile became country legend. It stretched unnaturally, like a cursed riddle, a grin with teeth, dimples like knives. His birthday was renamed the Grinmas holiday. Gifts optional, applause mandatory. Rhythm was law. One butler sneezed during National Smile Anthem. He was reassigned to dungeon choir forever. They sang upbeat songs in minor keys. Rumors spread about secret frowning resistance groups. They practiced sadness in dark, candlelit basements. They read poetry, memorized tragic historical moments. One even wore black socks. Unthinkable times. The Laughing King missed nothing, saw all. Pigeons trained to report melancholy activity daily. He banned rain, then clouds, then gray. "Color affects mood," he explained. "Gray depresses." He built Rainbow Throne from melted crayons. It squeaked loudly. Everyone laughed, required laughter. By 17, Clavicle ruled through dread delight. He walked town squares with tuba accompaniment. Citizens danced or limped in awkward joy. Joy became reflex, defense mechanism. National disease, grief went underground. It became hidden poison. A poet once wrote line without punchline. Now she writes slogans for cereal boxes. The boy king smiled forever and always. A monarch of mirth, a tyrant smiling. The world watched, confused, amused, mostly scared. Clavicle grinned wider than anyone imagined possible. They say he was born already smiling. They say he never once stopped grinning. They say, "You'd better smile when saying." Finley didn't like toast that much. But in Everjoy, toast meant patriotism. A crisp edge was national loyalty. Crumbs were a pledge of allegiance. Each morning, citizens toasted with precision. Perfect golden hue. No darker, no paler. Too soft. Prison. Too crunchy. Investigation. Finley always burned his toast slightly. He said it added character and danger. His neighbors said it added suspicion. One Thursday, Finley dropped his toast. It landed butter side down. A disaster. He gasped, looked around, held his breath. A guard appeared, grinning like a puppet. "Everything all right?" he asked, too cheerfully. Finley nodded. "Just air dancing. Toast fell." The guard stared. Butter glistened on pavement. It shimmered like a guilty confession. Then the guard picked it up. He held it with silver toast tongs. "Unacceptable symmetry," he muttered. "Butter off-center." Finley smiled nervously. "Artistic pattern, perhaps." The guard smiled wider. "Walk with me." They walked past grinning gardens and fountains. Statues laughed in stone. Birds chirped suspiciously. Finley kept his hands behind his back. He imagined running, or pretending to faint. They stopped at the Bureau of Mourning Offenses. Inside, charts, posters, and judgmental diagrams. One said, "Acceptable toast curves." Another, "Butter must reflect national spirit." The clerk behind the desk was humming, a bright tune about breakfast conduct. "Another toast case?" she asked, smiling hard. "Possible lack of joy during buttering," the guard replied. "He looks uncertain." She gasped. "First offense or repeat problem?" "First time," said the guard. "I think." "Smile correction course," she said firmly. "Standard package. Includes confetti practice." Finley received a pamphlet titled "Grinning Through Guilt, a Mourning Guide." He walked home holding the guilty toast. A bird watched him from a wire. At home, he locked all the doors. He smiled at the mirror, then blinked. His grin was uneven. Left side drooped. He spent an hour practicing symmetrical smiling. One side, then the other, then both. He ended up biting his lip. Then came the notice, printed in pink, "Public toast review scheduled. Friday morning. Mandatory." He groaned. That meant two awful things: judges and applause signs. The toast review happened in the square, with banners like, "Joy is buttered." Finley arrived with centered butter. He wore his cleanest sweater. Still itchy. The crowd clapped politely. Someone waved flags. A baby wore toast-shaped earrings. The judges arrived. All had wide grins. One wore a cape made of bread. Finley bowed and held out his toast. The panel sniffed and tapped gently. "Did you hum while buttering?" one asked. Finley blinked. "Hum?" "Yes," she said. "Butter absorbs emotion." "I hummed thoughtfully," Finley said quietly. A pause followed. Pencils hovered in air. Then the bell rang. Judgment printed instantly. "Acceptable, but enthusiasm levels unclear." Applause erupted. Someone threw decorative cereal. Finley received a ribbon. Breakfast approved. He bowed, walked away, legs trembling. At home, he tossed the ribbon aside, stared at his toaster. It stared back. He burned the next toast on purpose, just slightly, for balance, for control. Then came a knock. Gentle, but odd. 3 taps, then 2. The hidden rhythm. He opened the door. A stranger stood. Tall, gray coat, sad, kind eyes. The man showed a badge, a slice of bread, frowning. "You're with them," Finley whispered. The man nodded. "We're called the Crumb." Finley hesitated. "You're real?" "We toast honestly," said the man. "No smiling requirements. Just real breakfast." Finley looked down at his burned toast, then up at the stranger's serious face. "I'm interested," he said. "We meet Wednesdays," the man replied. "Behind the bakery. Bring toast." Then he disappeared into the cheerful fog. Finley closed the door and locked it. He sat by the table, thinking, then laughed, quietly, genuinely. It began with a woman and her soup. She stirred it wrong. Too somber. Too slow. Guards spotted her from across the cafe. She wasn't even frowning. Just not enthusiastic. They burst in. "Madam," one shouted. "Intention check!" She blinked. "Excuse me, I'm just stirring peas." "Exactly," he said, without joy or flair. The cafe went silent. Spoons stopped clinking. Everyone smiled harder, cheeks beginning to twitch. The woman tried to explain. I'm tired. Tiredness is not permitted before noon, he said. Page 12 of the Emotional Regulation Codex. They took her away, spoon and all. Left a sign on her table. Frown zone. Sanitized and sealed. Finley watched from the corner table. He had just ordered toast, again. The waiter handed it over, smiling violently. Extra butter, on the government, he said. Finley tried to smile back. Failed slightly. His mouth twitched. His eyebrows drooped an inch. A siren blared in the corner. Everyone turned. All eyes on Finley. The smile police arrived faster than toast cooled. One slid across the floor for drama. Citizen, he said, you've committed an expression crime. I twitched, Finley said. It was facial confusion. They didn't laugh. Instead, they printed a ticket. Infraction. Subsmile behavior. Severity. Toast level 3, Finley protested. That's ridiculous. My face is honest. Honesty, the officer said, is extremely dangerous. They placed him in a smile correction booth. Padded walls. Mirrors. Repeating audio. Cheer is strength. Every few seconds, a voice whispered, Smile, darling. It lasted 3 hours. He emerged exhausted. Eyes wide, mouth dry, dimples locked open. He walked home. Past neighbors watering plastic flowers. Each plant had smiley face stickers glued on. One neighbor waved. Smile tax goes up Friday. Finley nodded. I'll prepay in grin stamps. Inside his house, everything was watching him. The couch had eyes. The lamp hummed jingles. Even the doormat said, Wipe sadness here. He slumped on his chair, removed his shoes, accidentally sighed. Loudly. Rookie mistake. The fireplace turned red. Surveillance warning activated. He threw a blanket over it. Sorry, then whispered to himself, I need an escape. That night, he dreamed of frowning in public. People screamed. Babies exploded. Toast burst into flames. He woke in a sweat. The alarm sang. Another day of cheer, hooray, hooray! He barely managed breakfast. His cereal smiled back. Milk shaped itself into a laughing face. He walked outside, smiled at the mailbox. It blinked and accepted his tax letter. On his way to work, he passed posters. Sadness is treason. Hugs are currency. Fake it harder. Suddenly, a woman tripped on a banana peel. She fell, groaned, reached for help. People stared. No one moved. No one frowned. Then a man tossed her confetti. Happy accident, he said, then fled. Finley helped her up. She whispered, Thanks. He whispered back, You're not smiling enough. She nodded. I'll fix it. Just help me leave. Later that day, at the Ministry of Cheer, Finley clocked in. Machine asked, Mood? He selected, Appropriate. The screen printed a sticker. Good enough. He wore it on his shirt. Crooked. A junior officer approached. That sticker isn't joyful. Finley replied, It's honest joy. Quiet version. The officer squinted. Sounds rebellious. Report for grin recalibration. In the recalibration room, he met others. Eyes red, mouths trembling from over-smiling. One man whispered, I once frowned in sleep. Another said, I dream of neutral expressions. They weren't prisoners, just tired citizens. Burned out from joy. Finley looked around and realized something terrifying. Everyone knew it was fake. Everyone complied anyway. He returned home late, avoided eye contact. Even his toothbrush sang jingles in the dark. Before bed, he opened a drawer. Inside, a banned book titled Ted But True. He flipped pages, read in secret light, lines like, Grief is real, let it visit. He wept. Silently. And it felt good. Then he heard sirens again. Not outside, inside, in his mirror. The reflection frowned. On its own. The mirror shrieked, shattered itself. He ran to the kitchen, grabbed bread, smiled at it. Everything's fine, he said. The walls didn't respond. But he felt watched. Finley whispered, I'm losing my smile, and the toast didn't disagree. Finley liked walking near the central fountain. Not for the water, but the silence. It was the only place music paused. Even joy needed a break sometimes. But that day, something felt different. The fountain sounded hesitant, like shy drizzle. And someone was already sitting nearby. A man. Gray coat, blank stare. Not smiling, not frowning. Just there. Completely still, like a tree with secrets. Finley sat cautiously 2 benches away. The man didn't look at him, just stared into the water's gentle rhythm. Minutes passed. Then the man spoke. "Do you ever feel fake inside?" Finley froze, looked around. No guards, no smiling statues, no joy drones. He whispered back, "Every single day." The man chuckled, softly, sadly. "I used to laugh genuinely once." Finley leaned forward. "What happened?" "They trained it out of me," he said. "Laughter school, class B7. Finley nodded. "I failed confetti etiquette twice." They sat quietly for a while. Then the man reached into his coat, pulled out a small folded paper. He handed it to Finley. "Map," he whispered. "To the real room." Finley raised an eyebrow. "That's not legal." The man nodded. "Neither is honest sadness." Then he stood, walked away calmly, vanished into the statue-filled street. Finley opened the map with care. No words, just symbols, arrows and curves, a fountain, a bakery, a narrow alley. He memorized it, then burned it, used a match hidden inside his sock. That night he followed the path, avoided lights, smiled at any cameras, waved at automated guard pigeons, made it to the alley, heart racing. There, behind the bakery, a door, plain, wooden, unmarked, very uncheerful. He knocked twice, paused, then knocked once. A small hatch opened. 2 eyes appeared. "What's your mood?" the voice asked. Finley replied, tired of pretending. The door creaked open slowly. Inside, dim lights, creaky floor, shelves filled with banned books. A sign said, "No smiling required here." A woman approached, wearing neutral gray. "Welcome," she said. "We are the Still." Finley glanced around. Others sat quietly. No music, no balloons, no sparkles. Just people breathing normally. "Do you feel unsafe?" she asked. He shook his head. "I feel real." They served tea. No sugar smile cubes, just warm, honest tea in plain mugs. One man read a book titled, "You Don't Have to Cheer Up." Finley asked, "What happens if they find you?" The woman shrugged. "They already have." He blinked. "Then why are you still here?" "They can't imprison every tear," she said. "We exist between their definitions." He nodded slowly, took another sip. The tea tasted like truth. Later, someone played music, just notes, no lyrics, no giggles, just quiet beauty. Finley closed his eyes. Let go. He thought of his father's funeral. How he wasn't allowed to cry. How he'd smiled so hard it hurt. Now in this room he wept. 1 tear, then 2, then peace. The others didn't clap, didn't cheer. They just sat with him silently. And it was enough. When he left, they gave him a pin, a small silver circle, blank in center. "What's this mean?" he asked. "It means nothing," the woman smiled. "And that's perfectly okay." Finley hid the pin inside his shoe, walked home with shoulders relaxed. The next day, everything looked too loud. Billboards blinked. Speakers shouted slogans like, "Smiles build nations. Cry today, jail tomorrow." But Finley just smiled politely. His own quiet version, one he chose. At work, a supervisor noticed. "You seem different," she said. "I had plain tea last night," he answered, without sugar faces. She laughed nervously. "You joker." Finley nodded, but didn't joke again. He looked at his co-workers differently now. Noticed who blinked too fast, who smiled too wide, who never stopped tapping their foot. He wondered who else had found the door. That night, he dreamed again. Not of balloons, not of toast, but of sitting still beside a fountain, with someone who asked real questions. When he woke up, he didn't rush. He made breakfast without smiling instructions. Just butter, bread, silence. He stared at the mirror, practiced no expression at all, and for the first time in years, his face felt like his own. In Everjoy, children didn't learn spelling first. They learned smiling, deep smiles, wide smiles, historical smiles, strategic grins, backup chuckles. Laughter was the national language. At age 5, every child began training, not in math, but in mirth. They studied grin history and cheek stretching. Crying was a punishable subject. Finley remembered his time there well. The bells didn't ring. They giggled. Desks shaped like teeth. Chalk smelled like candy. Every morning began with the joy anthem. Let no day pass without a smile. Then came the warm-up grin drill. Open wide. Show 8 teeth. Hold. If your face trembled, detention followed. Finley never passed the dimple assessment. His left cheek resisted the curriculum. One day the instructor yelled, "You smile like a tired biscuit." Finley didn't know biscuits had moods, but he still apologized to the biscuit. Each classroom had mirrors instead of windows to reflect joy, not distractions. The principal was a balloon enthusiast. Every suspension came with helium punishment. Finley once forgot to laugh during spelling. The principal taped a balloon to his back. It said, "I failed to feel." Students weren't allowed recess without approval. A frown during hopscotch meant exile. Lunch required food-based joy reports. One child rated a sandwich as emotional. Another failed after whispering, "This pudding feels fake." The pudding reported him. Electronic spoons listened. Finley's best subject was quiet chuckling. He could giggle under pressure. Mostly. But he failed fake surprise class 3 times. He couldn't widen his eyes believably. One exam involved confetti and fake announcements. A goat ran through the hall shouting, "The king's belly button is missing!" Everyone gasped. Finley blinked twice. Failed. On graduation day, students wore yellow smiles. Literal masks, issued by the state. Finley's didn't fit. Slipped when he sneezed. He was assigned remedial cheer camp. That's where he met Norah. A quiet girl with unsure eyebrows. They were partnered for trust tickle exercises. Neither laughed. Both blamed internal weather conditions. They were separated for balance correction. Years later, Finley still remembered Norah's silence. Not cold, not sad, just true. He often wondered where she ended up. Stone jail? Bakery? Underground truth circles? Now, as an adult, he watched schools. From across the street, hidden behind hedges. One afternoon, a child walked out, alone, face blank, eyes steady. Finley approached slowly. "Everything okay?" The boy said, "They banned my drawings." Finley asked, "What did you draw?" "People without smiles," the boy whispered. Finley nodded. "That's brave." The boy kicked a pebble. "They said my clouds were too honest." Finley smiled gently. "Clouds don't always giggle." He gave the boy a sticker. It was blank. No slogans, no sparkles. "Thanks," said the boy, staring thoughtfully. Then he ran off toward the bakery. That night, Finley wrote a letter. To no one. To himself. To Norah. He wrote, "They teach us to laugh before they let us speak. They train our teeth, but not our thoughts." He folded the letter into a bird, set it on his windowsill. Wind carried it somewhere uncertain. Maybe to someone who needed it. The next day, he passed a classroom. Children clapped in synchronized bursts. The teacher shouted, "Repeat after me. Happy people live longer. Sadness is selfish." One child sneezed mid-smile. The room gasped. Finley shook his head, walked faster. In his pocket, a secret notebook. Inside, sketches of frowning clouds. There were rumors about the tunnels. Old tunnels. Pre-joy. Pre-smile. Forgotten spaces. Before balloons. Before toast inspections. Before everything. They said musicians used to hide there. People who played minor chords without permission. People who preferred silence to sing-alongs. Finley didn't believe the rumors. Until he found the violin case. It was buried beneath his floorboard. Wrapped in cloth. Covered in dust. Inside, sheet music and a strange key. Not labeled. Not government-issued. Mysterious shape. He stared at the key all night. It didn't hum like official objects. No anthem, no glowing sticker. Just silence. He showed it to no one. Just carried it in his pocket. One rainy evening, he followed echoes. Past fountains. past fake laughter booths, down a staircase marked "Authorized Chuckling Only." He paused, then entered. The hallway was long and quiet. No posters, no cheerful slogans, no lights, just candles, flickering gently. Unapproved fire. At the end, a door. No handle. He held up the key. It glowed. A lock appeared. Turned itself. Door opened. Inside, a room full of sound. Not noise, not government cheer loops, real music, deep, raw, dangerous. A woman played cello without smiling. A man tapped drums with closed eyes. Another hummed. Off-key. With feeling. They all stopped when they saw Finley. Eyes wide. Not scared, just surprised. He bowed awkwardly. "I brought the key." They relaxed. One woman approached. "You're late," she said, not unkindly. "We thought no one would come." "I found it by accident," he said. She nodded. "Music finds its listener." He sat in the corner. Listened. Watched. Absorbed the forbidden sound. The orchestra wasn't perfect, but it was real. They missed notes. They argued mid-song, but no one pretended. That night they played something strange. A melody without conclusion. A tune that didn't resolve with joy. Finley cried. Not loud, not messy, just one honest tear. The room smiled. "Welcome," someone whispered. "You're one of us." He returned every week. Same time. Always entered alone. Always left changed. By day, he smiled, per regulation. By night, he listened and healed. One night, a girl played flute. Tiny. Nervous. Maybe 12 years old. Her melody stuttered, then soared. Finley asked, "Where did she come from?" "She escaped the academy," someone said. "They made her compose joy jingles." "What happened?" Finley asked. "She composed silence," the man said. "They called it a terrorist act." Finley brought toast sometimes. Burnt. No butter. They passed it like communion. He brought a broken radio once. They rewired it. Turned it into drums. Everything had music, if you listened. One evening, alarms echoed far above. Not inside, not close, but moving. They paused rehearsal. Tension hummed louder than cello. "We've been discovered?" someone asked. "Not yet," a woman replied. "But the smiles are closing in." Everyone packed quickly. Covered instruments in blankets. Blew out candles. Locked the sound. Finley stayed behind a moment longer. He touched the cello gently. It felt alive. Tired. Brave. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city blinked with artificial stars. Holograms danced above the plaza. A giant banner read, "National Grin Marathon, 72 hours non-stop." Finley smiled just enough to pass, but his ears still held the cello. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept humming the unresolved tune. The next morning, he walked differently. Not joyful, not sad, just real. At work, he tapped his desk. A quiet rhythm. Almost musical. His supervisor asked, "New Smile song?" He nodded. Composed it in a dream. They approved it for marketing instantly. Finley smiled. A little too wide, but only he knew the truth. That beat wasn't joy. It was resistance in rhythm. Everjoy had many departments. Ministry of Laughter, Bureau of Cheer, Toast Council, Sincerity Surveillance Committee. But the scariest was the Smile Patrol, officially named Enforcement of Public Facial Positivity. Unofficially, the Grin Squad. They wore yellow boots and mirror gloves. Their badges glowed when near disobedient frowns. Their motto, "Joy is a shared responsibility." Finley first encountered them at the bakery. He only wanted bread, not a scene. But he sneezed mid-smile, reflexive, harmless, deadly. A patrol officer spun around instantly. Blonde, tall, teeth too perfect. "Bless you," she said. "Smile, please." Finley tried. It trembled. His upper lip betrayed him. She scanned his face with a device. It beeped twice. Bad sign. "Minor enthusiasm dip," she declared. "Probationary cheer warning issued." He accepted the pink slip quietly, stamped with a cartoon frown crossed out. Back home, he reviewed the warning. 3 strikes meant mandatory giggle therapy. He sighed. Then remembered the walls listened. He coughed loudly to mask it. The next morning, Smile Patrol knocked early. Not one officer. 5. They wore identical grins and clipboards. Their shoes squeaked in unison. "Random positivity assessment," one announced. "We noticed your porch lacks balloons." "I'm allergic to helium," Finley explained. They wrote something down grimly. One pointed to his mailbox. "Your mail hasn't smiled in days." Finley stared. "It's metal." "No excuse," the officer replied. Another sniffed his doormat. "Not joyful enough. Replace immediately." They circled his house like bees, but louder and less productive. Inside, they examined every room, laughed at old pillows, frowned at colorless curtains. In the kitchen, they found a spoon. Plain, stainless steel. No smile sticker. "Unregistered utensil," one said coldly. "It's for soup," Finley said. "Unsmiling soup?" another asked, horrified. Finley shrugged. "Depends on the broth." They wrote more notes. Left him with a new list. Recommended household joy improvements. Replace mirror with giggle glass. Install automated laugh track. Paint walls yellow. Approved shade, Factor 42. Subscribe to Joke of the Day service. Finley sighed again. Coughcam caught it. Strike 2. That night, he visited the still. Showed them the warning notice. A woman read it aloud. He failed to smile at his lamp? "They're getting stricter," someone muttered. "They fined me for yawning sincerely." Another whispered, "They took my plants." "Why?" "They drooped without approval." Finley asked, "What do we do?" Someone passed him a folder. Inside, copies of smile permits. They were forged, flawlessly. One page showed a fake sticker. Certified Joy Emission Zone, Level 3. "You'll need this for your toilet," the woman said seriously. "Why would my toilet need—" She raised a hand. "Everything must smile. Everything." Finley nodded. Took the papers. Planned renovations carefully. Next morning, patrol returned. Again. Same officers. More suspicion. They examined his house, confused. "Did your walls always giggle?" "Yes," Finley said confidently. One officer muttered. "This spoon feels different." "I painted a smile on it," Finley replied. "With mustard." They hesitated. Confused. Slightly impressed. The clipboard officer frowned. Instantly, his own badge beeped. Everyone stared at him. "You just frowned," whispered another. "I did not!" he cried. "You questioned joy," said the leader. "Impossible," he shouted. I love balloons." They scanned him. Beep, beep, alarm. "He's infected," one muttered. Take him to reflection camp." He screamed, kicked, begged. They dragged him away, still yelling. I'm happy, I swear." The others stared, shaken. Then looked at Finley. "Good job," one said. "Your spoon saved the day." He bowed politely. "Just doing my civic duty." They left in silence. Suspicion laced every step. Finley closed the door. Collapsed in laughter. Real. Raw. Quiet. He added a new sticker. Certified emotional balance. Reviewed monthly. Then he flushed the spoon down the toilet, just in case. Every year, Everjoy hosted a grand event. A spectacle of sound, teeth, and cheer. Known as the Great National Laugh-Off. It lasted 3 full days. No silence. No blinking without rhythm. No naps allowed. The king called it a sacred tradition. Citizens called it a migraine in daylight. Finley had never attended. Until now. Attendance was mandatory. Joy was non-negotiable. Banners flapped with slogans like, "Snicker loud or sit in jail." Tears are not tickets. City squares became performance stages. Citizens competed for laugh trophies, most creative giggle, most patriotic chuckle. One man performed the national anthem backwards, entirely through hiccups. He won gold. Children reenacted battles using joy puppets, foam swords, tooth-shaped helmets, glitter grenades. Every sneeze had to end in applause. Every cough needed a musical follow-up. Finley wore his least painful smile, walked cautiously among dancing mascots. He passed the stage of surprise, gasping, where actors shouted fake news dramatically. The king grew a 3rd dimple. The moon applied for citizenship. Crowds laughed. Some passed out joyfully. Finley reached the giggle tent reluctantly. He showed his ID to enter. A woman in a sparkle coat greeted him. Welcome. Prepared your routine? He nodded, lied, smiled stiffly. She handed him a fake mustache. For courage, she whispered. Inside, a small stage waited. One chair. One microphone. Too bright. The announcer read his name with cheer. Next up, Finley the Friendly. He stepped forward, tripped slightly, recovered. Microphone squealed. Audience clapped automatically. He cleared his throat, tried a joke. Why don't flowers join the army? Silence, he continued. Because they already have buds. One person laughed, nervously. Another coughed into a kazoo. Finley panicked, tried another one. What do you call serious toast? Grain with ambition. A judge blinked slowly. No laughter. Then a balloon popped behind him. He screamed. Audience roared. Laughter. Loud. Relentless. Victorious. Finley blinked, bowed awkwardly, left quickly. Outside, a judge chased him down. You won silver, he shouted breathlessly. I screamed, Finley replied. Perfect performance, the judge beamed. Modern comedy, raw fear, very trendy. He pinned a medal on Finley's shirt. It read, Second Best Laughter Accident. That evening, Finley stared at the medal, placed it beside his warning slips. He visited the still, showed the group. One woman cackled. Silver for panic? Impressive. They passed the medal around respectfully. No applause, just quiet appreciation. A man whispered, You're becoming a legend. Finley smiled genuinely. For 1 second, then hid it carefully. The next day, Finley saw posters, his face, on banners, citywide. Caption, Laugh like Finley, fear is funny. He stood frozen, swallowed loudly. A woman next to him whispered, Is that your scared face? He nodded. Apparently, I inspire joy. He rushed home, closed curtains, sat down. On his doorstep, a gold envelope. Inside, invitation from the royal palace. Private dinner with His Cheerful Majesty. Finley groaned, loudly. The radio cheered in response. He showed the letter at the still. Everyone stared in awe and horror. You're meeting the king? He never invites regular citizens. He must like your scream. Finley asked, What do I do? Someone replied, Survive, and keep blinking evenly. Finley ironed his shirt for the occasion. It still wrinkled like nervous bread. He combed his hair twice, then ruined it with nervous hands. Outside, a gold carriage arrived, pulled by horses with glitter manes. The driver wore a tuxedo and sandals. Hop in, he said cheerfully. The inside smelled like fruit confetti. Seats made of polished marshmallow leather. They passed smiling statues, singing pigeons, fireworks shaped like teeth. At the gate, guards scanned Finley's pockets. No weapons, no sadness, no pepper. Inside, the palace glowed aggressively. Too many chandeliers, too few shadows. A hallway sang when he walked. Notes matched his footsteps in real time. Then came the dining room. A long table, too many forks. At the far end, the king, Clavicle III, giggling alone. He wore golden pajamas and slippers. A crown tilted like careless confidence. Finley, he boomed. The toast screamer! Finley bowed. Your cheerful majesty. Sit, eat, let's talk laughter. Finley sat carefully. Forks jingled ominously. A waiter appeared with a trumpet. Announced the soup with dramatic whispering. The king slurped loudly. So, funny man. I'm not, Finley started. Modest. Even better, said the king. You made people laugh with panic. That's true genius, honest comedy. Finley blinked. It was a balloon. Exactly, the king shouted. Symbolic, timeless. Another trumpet, another course. Meat-shaped smiles. Finley poked his plate. The food winked back. The king laughed. Your fear changed everything. People adore you. I adore you. Finley forced a grin. Honored, your majesty. You will join my personal giggle team, the king declared. No arguing. But Promotion, perk-filled, the king interrupted. You'll host school visits, lead surprise parades, supervise national joy. Finley sipped water slowly. It tasted like sparkling permission. What if I refuse? He asked softly. Silence. Sudden. Heavy. The king leaned in, eyes sparkling. No one refuses a royal smile. Finley nodded. Of course. Just overwhelmed. Good man. The king grinned. I knew you had the spirit. Another trumpet. Cake exploded on plates. A waiter shouted, "Chocolate cheer with candied hope!" Finley swallowed hard. His spoon bent slightly in protest. Dinner ended with a laughter oath. He repeated each word without blinking. "I pledge eternal joy and spontaneous dancing. I swear to smile in my sleep. I reject gloom. I embrace giggling law." The king clapped. "Approved!" Finley was given a badge. Official Ambassador of Accidental Happiness. It sparkled, buzzed faintly. He rode home in silence. Marshmallow seats no longer soft. At home, he hung the badge. Beside the warning slips and toast ribbon. The wall looked like confused achievement. He visited the still that night. They gasped when they saw him. "You survived dinner?" someone asked. "He recruited me," Finley muttered. They stared. Then one whispered, "You're inside now." Finley nodded. "I can listen." Another passed him a note. "Operation Quiet Parade, Tuesday." He read it. Burned it. The flame curled like nervous hope. That night, Finley didn't sleep. He rehearsed smiling in 3 languages. He whispered the laughter oath backwards, then stood in the mirror. Practiced blinking without betrayal. Tuesday arrived with forced sunshine. Even clouds were government-approved shapes. That morning, Finley wore his badge, Official Ambassador of Accidental Happiness. He pinned it slightly crooked. The city buzzed with parade rumors. The king would attend. Confetti cannons fully loaded. Finley met the still near a bakery. They stood in line, pretending to crave cheerful muffins. Norah was there, holding a napkin. The code was folded inside. Finley read it once, burned it, wrote, "Time, signal." Today was Operation Quiet Parade, a protest disguised as cheer. The plan? Walk silently during celebration. No clapping, no giggling, no waving. In Everjoy, silence was rebellion. Each participant wore approved smiles, but no sparkle in their eyes. The official parade began at noon. Music blared from every loudspeaker. Drums pounded like happiness. Dancers spun like sugar-stuffed tornadoes. Mascots juggled lemons and fake birds. Finley marched near the front, waved exactly twice per block. Behind him rows of silent rebels, all smiling, all defiant. The crowd noticed something odd. No laughter from Section E. An old woman whispered, "Why so quiet?" Her grandson replied, "Maybe it's dramatic style." The Smile Patrol grew suspicious. Officers radioed each other. One tripped on a confetti hose, blamed emotional sabotage. The king stood on his balcony, wore a hat shaped like toast. He waved mechanically, cheeks stretched too far. "Look at my loyal laughers," he shouted, "united in joyful nonsense." But Section E stayed silent. Finley held his pose. Steady grin. His heart thumped like illegal drums. At the signal, a dropped balloon. Everyone blinked twice. That was all. No fireworks, no shouting, just blinking. The message was clear. We smile, but we are awake. The king tilted his toast hat. "Why aren't they clapping?" A guard panicked. "They're smiling too efficiently." "Too efficient," the king repeated. "Yes, it's suspicious, too synchronized, too calm." The king threw cake off the balcony. "Distract them with sugar joy." Guards fired candy into the crowd. Marshmallows hit innocent children. One rebel caught a jelly bean, chewed it slowly. No reaction. That image, calm chewing, was broadcast citywide by accident. People paused at home, confused. Is this new fashion? Minimalist celebration? Silent cheer? The idea spread. People across town tried quiet joy. The still watched from rooftops. Norah whispered, "We started something." Finley nodded. "We blinked a revolution." By sunset, the parade ended. No arrests, no fireworks, no confetti storm. The king sulked behind his throne. "Why didn't they laugh at my balloons?" His advisor mumbled, "Perhaps silence is trendy." The king threw his crown at a lamp. "Trendiness is treason." Finley returned home carefully, his shoes filled with parade dust. Inside, he found a letter. No stamp, no name, just folded. He opened it slowly. 4 words, handwritten. "Tomorrow, Phase 2 begins." Phase 2 began with breakfast cereal. Specifically, cereal that whispered compliments. Each spoonful said, "You're radiant today." Finley ignored it. Poured black coffee. The mug said, "Let's dance forever." He threw it in the sink. Norah arrived with a sealed envelope. Inside, map, fake credentials, courage sticker. The mission: infiltrate the Department of Emotional Correction, known as DEC. Feared, parodied, real. Its slogan, fixing feelings one thought at a time. Disguised as wellness inspectors, they entered quietly. Their badges sparkled with regulated enthusiasm. The lobby smelled like mint and pressure. Posters lined the walls. Sadness is a choice. Cry later, smile now. A receptionist grinned without blinking. "Welcome to Joy Adjustment Services," Finley said. "We're here for audits." She nodded. Everyone's joy is due. They walked past therapy theater, a room where people reenacted giggles. One man wept while juggling, labeled advanced rebalancing case. Another group practiced smiling while regretting. They wore hats with attached tears. The instructor shouted, "Louder regret, softer laughter." They passed a room titled Laughter Gym. People lifted dumbbells while chanting knock-knock jokes. Finley whispered, "Is this satire?" Norah replied, "This is policy." Downstairs, they found the archive vault. Inside, files on emotional violations. Finley pulled his own folder. Pages of documented frowns. He whispered, "They recorded my toast reaction?" "Yes," said Norah. "And your shoe complaints." "Those shoes squeaked with sadness," he defended. Another file showed Norah's offenses. Smiled too late after compliments. Eyebrows raised suspiciously at a rainbow. Drew a frown on a napkin. Finley asked, "Why keep these records?" Norah replied, "Control likes paper." They copied the files silently, left behind banana stickers as distraction. Suddenly, alarms blared overhead. Too cheerful to feel urgent. A voice boomed, "Smiling is not optional." They ran, took the elevator. The music sang, "Everything's okay, probably." Once outside, they ditched the badges, burned the courage sticker ceremonially. That night, the still gathered early. Everyone held papers. Everyone shook quietly. They read their own records aloud. One woman confessed, "I blinked wrong in 2009. Another whispered, "My laugh was offbeat once." Finley stood and raised his voice. "We are not broken, just honest." They cheered in silence. The ceiling didn't collapse. Someone declared, "Tomorrow we speak plainly." "Without winks," another added. Norah whispered, "Even if it trembles." Finley nodded, especially then. A new booth appeared overnight. Bright yellow. Smelled like peppermint and fear. Painted words across the top. "Honesty Hour, sponsored by Cheer Chips." Finley stared at it cautiously. Outside, a line formed immediately. The city loved new things, especially new things shaped like vending machines. A man stepped in. Music played. Lights flashed. He stepped out, smiling, confused. "What happened?" asked a passerby. "I told the truth," he said. "What kind of truth?" "I hate balloons," he whispered. Gasps. Then applause. Then confetti sprayed from the booth. Finley blinked. Norah nudged him. "It's bait," she muttered. "People confess. Guards listen." "Then what?" Finley asked. "Depends on the honesty." The king addressed the nation that evening. His robe sparkled. His crown chirped. "Honesty booths help citizens unburden responsibly." He grinned too wide. "You may cry. Briefly. Then smile." The crowd applauded politely. Finley choked on his juice. Later, at the still, discussion erupted. "Should we use it? Could be a trap. Or a chance." Norah declared, "We test it tonight." They drew straws. Finley lost. He approached the booth at midnight. Held his breath. Stepped inside. Warm light bathed his face. A voice asked gently, "What do you truly feel?" Finley answered, "Tired of pretending everything's okay." A pause. Then laughter. Recorded, polite, pre-packaged. He stepped out. A sticker was printed instantly. It read, "Truth level mildly brave." No guards, no alarms, just a free lollipop. Back at the still, he shared. "They're testing reactions," Norah said. "Mapping emotional patterns." Finley nodded. "They reward small honesty." Someone asked, "What if we go big?" The next day, more booths appeared. In malls, parks, elevators, people lined up, confessed to preferring silence over music, confessed that smiles sometimes hurt. Finley entered again. declared, "I once faked laughter for approval." The booth responded, "Congratulations, you are relatable flawed." Another sticker, slightly glittery. Guards began watching closely. One booth exploded from too much honesty. A woman shouted, "I dislike morning hugs," then vanished into a cloud of soap. That night, Norah whispered, "We push further." They printed counterfeit booth labels, "Honesty Extreme, Level Red," planted them on select booths, waited quietly. By morning, panic spread. Citizens confessed real things. One screamed, "I think clowns are manipulative." Another yelled, "Toe?" Rated. The system trembled. The king issued a statement. All honesty must be filtered kindly. Guards replaced booths with hug bins. You could scream inside, but only while hugging a plush carrot. Finley tested one, screamed softly. Carrot blinked twice. He emerged changed, not because it worked, but because it didn't. The still gathered again. "Honesty matters," Finley said, "even when monitored. We speak louder next time." Norah raised her cup. "To imperfect truth." Everyone sipped, no toast, just peaceful silence for once. Beneath Everjoy candy-tiled streets, something stirred. Not rats, not plumbing, not forgotten cake. Music, low, minor, beautifully suspicious. Finley discovered it accidentally one night, chasing a dropped badge into a vent. He heard the sound first, then smelled it. Honest sweat. It came from below. He followed the vibration like a scent. A hatch opened into shadow. Dim lanterns. Rows of people, holding flutes, drums, violins, spoons. An orchestra. Underground. Hidden. No uniforms. No smile quotas. The conductor wore gray socks. He lifted a baton solemnly. Then silence. Then music, real music. Sad, defiant. Beautiful. Finley blinked hard. A woman beside him whispered, "Welcome to the Orchestra of Discontent." Another added, "We play feelings freely." Someone played a cello shaped like regret. Each note curved with ancient disappointment. No lyrics, just truth. No rhythm police, just permission. Finley asked, "How do you exist?" The conductor smiled. Softly, not lawfully. "Emotion always finds the cracks." He gestured toward the ceiling. "They banned sadness. We play it instead." Each musician had a code name. Maestro Saig. Viola Hope. Snare Doubt. A child banged pots proudly. They called her Everjoy. Finley asked, "Do people know?" "They suspect," whispered the conductor. "But most fear silence too much." "We perform once a week," another said, "then disappear again." "Why tell me?" Finley asked. "Because you blinked twice at truth. Because your toast scream had depth." Finley blushed. It was reflexive. "All real art is," said Maestro Sai. They handed him a triangle. He struck it once. It echoed. He joined. The next performance was riskier. They played beneath a cupcake factory. The walls sweated vanilla, but the music soured it instantly. Tears rolled down cheeks. Not arrested, just released. Finally, above ground, people felt something strange. A weight in their spine. One baker dropped her spoon. Whispered, "Was that a cello?" The guards felt it too. Their badges pulsed oddly. A message reached the king's desk. Unauthorized harmony detected in Sector Suite. He summoned the Minister of Noise, ordered increased loudness at all corners. "Pump more jingles," he barked. "Add tambourines to traffic lights." The streets exploded with cheer cannons. Balloons screamed birthday songs randomly, but the underground played on. Quieter now. Deeper now. Finley became a regular. He learned the rhythm of rebellion. Each note said, "We exist even without applause." The still noticed his late nights. Norah asked, "You in a band?" Finley nodded. "Kind of." She smiled. Not approved, just real. They planned something dangerous. An above-ground concert, one time. No permission, no sponsors, just instruments and breath. They chose an alley near City Hall. The acoustics were perfect. People came. Quietly. Some held spoons. Others brought saucepans. They began with silence. Then a single note. Low. Steady. Brave. Within minutes, 20 people joined, then 40, then more. One child tapped a rhythm using licorice sticks and lunchboxes. It was glorious, until the alarms blared. The Smile Patrol arrived confused. Where are the jokes? Why isn't anyone clapping? Finley stood with his triangle. Rang at once. The sound rippled like memory. The guards paused. Something cracked inside. One officer wept gently, another sat down slowly. The concert ended in quiet, no arrests, no speeches, just a shared exhale. The king felt his power slipping. Too many people blinking strangely. Too many silences in public. He called an emergency Smile cabinet meeting. Only 6 ministers attended. 3 were asleep with eyes open. "We need inspiration," the king shouted. "Something catchy, something mandatory." The minister of musical uplift suggested, "A new national anthem, Your Cheerfulness." "Brilliant," said the king. "Make it louder than thinking." They hired the loudest composer alive. His resume was 4 pages of echoes. He wrote by banging drums with breadsticks. His assistants wore earmuffs at all times. The anthem was finished by Tuesday. Lyrics included lines like, "Giggle for the glory of toes," "Wave your teeth at doubters." Citizens were required to memorize it. Even babies had to babble the chorus. Finley received his music sheet. The notes danced like ants. He tried humming it once. His plant died instantly. Norah said, "This is weaponized melody." The still gathered in a storage closet. They practiced the new anthem quietly. One rebel played it backwards. Sounded like a lullaby for frogs. Another added wrong notes deliberately. "Oops, I sneezed in minor key." The day of public rehearsal arrived. Giant speakers were installed everywhere. Choir leaders held glitter batons. Finley stood in line nervously. Everyone wore matching banana-colored uniforms. The conductor shouted, "Smile!" First verse began with hiccups. Second verse demanded fake laughter in rhythm. Third verse was just clapping vowels. A, E, I, S, I, O, joy. Finley mouthed the words incorrectly. Norah coughed in sync with rebellion. Suddenly, a trumpet blasted confetti. The king arrived in sparkly boots. He shouted, "I shall lead the chorus!" His voice cracked like overcooked eggs. Some clapped, some froze. Finley dropped his sheet music. The wind carried it away. People watched it flutter, mesmerized. Then one child said, "This song hurts my ears." The crowd gasped. The king blinked. The child continued, "Can I hum instead?" The king smiled awkwardly. "Of course, little citizen of cheer." But it was too late. Other children joined in. One hummed a lullaby. Another beatbox whispered a bedtime poem. The anthem collapsed, mid-note. Someone in the back yelled, "Sing what you feel!" Suddenly the square filled with sound. Not the anthem. Real voices. Sad songs. Old folk chants. Birthday songs sung out of tune. The guards hesitated. Some even sang quietly. The king dropped his baton. The conductor fainted into a cake. The anthem was over. Finley exhaled. Norah grinned without fear. The still regrouped that evening. They toasted with carbonated tea. "We survived the loudest rebellion ever," someone joked. Finley lifted his mug. "To voices that don't match. To melodies that don't obey," said Norah. Everyone hummed different songs. None of them in key. Beneath the palace sauna's perfumed steam vents. Past the cannon hall of scented mist. Behind a fake wall near tile 28. Lurked a courtroom few dared to acknowledge. They called it the Court of Frowns. Officially, it didn't exist. Unofficially, terrifying. It ruled Everjoy from underground silence. No one spoke of it directly, ever. Only whispered hints over unbuttered toast, or traced symbols on sugar packets. Rumors claimed the judges never smiled once. Their faces trained into elite emotional neutrality. Their robes shimmered with judgment and glitter. Their motto? "We frown so you can't." Finley received his summons mid-breakfast Thursday. It was tied to a sunglasses-wearing pigeon. The envelope smelled like judgment and almonds. He opened it, read it, paused, then quietly burned the letter with toast. Norah asked, "You finally got the invite?" He nodded. "Do I look doomed enough?" "You sighed last week," she replied. "And your socks clashed. Classic traitor behavior." That night, he packed without any humor. No jokes, no confetti, no lucky kazoo, only clothes that matched and serious breath. The entrance to the court was ridiculous. A vending machine blinked in Morse code. A secret panel dropped him underground instantly. A scanner greeted him with robotic authority. "Frown potential, medium-high," the machine beeped. Finley said, "I had gas, honestly." A nearby guard raised one sarcastic eyebrow. "Save it for the jellybean judge." Inside, the courtroom hummed with citrus tension. Glittery chandeliers swung with slow menace. The walls smelled like lemon-scented consequence. 3 judges sat atop uncomfortable thrones. Each wore more glitter than common sense. One held a clipboard shaped like justice. The center judge leaned forward theatrically. "Citizen Finley, your joy appears inconsistent." Another added, "You frowned at breakfast toast." The third asked, "Ever doubted a rainbow?" Finley whispered, "Only double ones sometimes glitch." The room gasped with elegant disapproval. The judge slammed a jellybean gavel. "You require emotional clarification. Come get Sartson immediately." 2 guards escorted him to a chamber. A plaque read, "Regiggle Room 3B." Inside, beanbags, mirrors, and foam feathers. A robot counselor appeared beside a fog machine. Name tag, Dr. Bloop, certified chuckle mechanic. "Please recalibrate your joy circuits," it chirped. Finley tried to laugh, but croaked awkwardly. "Troubling tone detected," Dr. Bloop declared. It adjusted knobs labeled Twinkle and Spunk. Bubble fog filled the room dramatically. Finley coughed, then tried again reluctantly. Sounded like applause from confused raccoons. Bloop clapped. "Acceptable chuckle. Marked partial improvement." After 6 more tries, Finley was drained. Laughter shouldn't feel like writing tax forms. He was released with a polite sticker. Emotionally reviewed, giggle pending. Outside, the still waited beside trash bins. Norah tossed him a water balloon. "You survived without breaking your weirdness," Finley whispered. "They fear our quiet faces." Another rebel nodded. "And symmetrical blinking patterns." That night, they met beneath a sandwich shop. They called it Operation Facial Freedom Headquarters. There, they trained in expression defiance drills. They practiced honest eyebrows, unapologetic cheek rest. Pamphlets read, "It's okay to look okay." One flyer simply said, "Blink without shame." Guards noticed the movement by next Tuesday. They arrested a mannequin for appearing unamused. The king watched the footage while stress-eating. He shouted, "Where are the aggressive cheerers?" His advisor answered, "People seem peacefully average, sire." The king screamed and threw glitter at furniture. Meanwhile, the rebels held expression practice hour. Finley frowned at himself in a spoon. Norah yawned without permission or apology. A child drew neutral faces on balloons. The movement gained attention and confused smiles. One morning, guards confiscated a thoughtful mirror. Another day, they fined someone for sighing. Finley stood calmly in a library fountain. He held a sign that read gently, "Smiling is optional. Humanity is required." That photo spread across toast shops. People nodded at it in quiet agreement. One elderly man chuckled and got arrested. In retaliation, the rebels launched Face Day. No one smiled, no one frowned. Just honest, chill, polite existence all day. The king panicked and summoned emergency theater actors. They staged a musical called Cheer Police. No one clapped. The play lacked subtlety. At night, the king tossed in bed. "Why won't they beam with commitment anymore?" His advisor said, "Sir, they've discovered nuance." The king replied, "Nuance is just lazy sparkle." That week, Finley wrote a manifesto poem. "Your smile is beautiful, but so is rest." It became graffiti outside the Ministry of Chuckles. Eventually, guards stopped issuing smile citations. They began blinking more and shouting less. The court of frowns fell into silence, its jelly bean gavel now used for snacks. Finley walked past it, sipping quiet lemonade. Norah joined him with her neutral sunglasses. They nodded at each other with purpose, and somewhere beneath the sauna tiles, the vending machine blinked one last time. Everjoy adored contests more than breathing itself. Pie fights, smile marathons, waving until shoulder cramps. This year brought a brand new strange event. It arrived quietly, printed on moist posters, the first national whisper games of Everjoy. The king approved it faster than cake. "Whispers are still cheerful," he confidently declared. "They're just shouting, with exquisite royal manners." City officials decorated in soft, hushed tones, quiet glitter, whispery banners, soundproof helium balloons. Finley spotted the announcement on a cabbage. Norah stared and raised her skeptical eyebrow. "This feels suspiciously polite," she whispered slowly. The still voted, mouths sealed, hands raised. They entered the games in noble disguise. Team name? The Humming Daisies of Silence. Slogan? Low volume, high impact, no apologies. Opening ceremony arrived with nervous excitement. Fireworks were replaced by blinking light bulbs instead. Crowds clapped by tapping their own knees. Events included quietest victory, yell ever recorded, stealthiest confetti, toss under legal conditions, emotional miming, while harp music played softly. Finley advanced to the silent debate finals. His opponent, a retired librarian named Doris. They argued entirely through nuanced eyebrow gestures. Finley raised one brow. The crowd gasped. Doris countered with a double blink attack. A judge wept behind a velvet curtain. Finley nodded sideways and secured his victory. Norah competed in the discreet chuckle relay. She bounced silently on pillows while giggling. Her team won by a whisper's margin. The king sat on his soundproof throne. He clapped with velvet gloves and whispered, "This is peaceful patriotism at its finest." But something odd stirred beneath the silence. Contestants began whispering truths without permission. One muttered, "The anthem hurts my teeth." Another sighed, "My grin feels permanently glued." The audience listened without smiling or judging. No arrests, no alarms, just quiet blinking. Finley leaned toward Norah and murmured, "They're inventing safe speech accidentally again." Norah nodded and whispered, "Push it further." In round 4, whispered poetry, performance live, Finley approached the mic with calm breath. He spoke gently and clearly into nothing. "I miss silence when I fall asleep. Not forced hush, but real, honest peace, where faces rest without smiling on command. No guards moved, no whistles blew, just soft blinking and intense attention." Norah stepped forward and spoke her verse. "Sometimes I frown during dreams at night. Then I wake up relieved it's real, because sometimes even freedom looks very tired." The crowd blinked together in reverent rhythm. No applause, no cheers, but no punishment. The king scratched his head with confusion. "Are these cheerful metaphors or dangerous metaphors?" His advisor said, "It's poetic compliance, Majesty." The king growled, "Fine, add more balloons now." The final round was a duet challenge. Whisper the national anthem, word for word. Finley and Norah volunteered with perfect posture. They stood center stage and gently began. "O land of cheer, we wear thin grins. Your confetti rains upon our tired hearts. Still we hum quietly beneath noisy laws." The arena held breath. One child whispered, "Me too," with sincerity that shook foundations. A gentle hush swept over the audience. No gasps, no shouts, just slow realization. The king stood and yelled from the balcony, "That's enough compliance for one lifetime!" But nobody heard him anymore that day. They were too busy quietly listening hard. The still won gold. Their medals murmured. Back in the alley, they toasted silence. Finley whispered, We changed a rule today. Norah smiled, without raising our voice once, and for the first time in Everjoy, the night passed with no background giggles. The day began with rain made of confetti. Not symbolic rain, real soggy confetti from clouds. The king had ordered cheerful weather again. Let joy descend directly from the sky. People slipped across the painted smiley sidewalks. One woman sprained her optimism in public. Finley wore waterproof boots and cautious dignity. Norah showed up with goggles and regret. They didn't talk, only exchanged knowing glances. The still had made a quiet decision. No rebellion, no fire, no speeches, just 1 minute without even a grin. At exactly 3:00 p.m., all smiles drop. Not shouting, not marching, just deadpan faces. Finley practiced his serious look at breakfast. He resembled toast having an existential panic. Norah whispered, "Use resting reflection face. Be blank." The plan was spread through coded whispers. Sandwich wrappers hid instructions between lettuce leaves. Soap bubbles carried messages above children's heads. One pigeon flew carrying a secret memo. The pigeon later earned a government position. The king sensed the national mood shifting unnaturally. "Why is everyone blinking like synchronized parrots?" His advisors smiled harder, sweating with joy. At 2:59 p.m., Everjoy became perfectly still. Mimes froze mid-wall. Dancers paused mid-spin. Street choirs held breath in choral silence. At 3:00 p.m. exactly, it all dropped. Across alleys and salons, every grin disappeared. One child dropped their ice cream scoop. They stared at it honestly, without pretending. A dog tilted its head in concern. The king choked on his sparkling birthday water. "Why is no one joyfully radiating beams?" He ran to the balcony, robe flapping dramatically. Below, blank faces reflected quiet, serious questions. Guards panicked and stumbled into the streets. "Is this a cloud failure or sabotage? Did the sun forget how to behave?" Nobody answered. Nobody smiled. Nobody explained anything. Only quiet lips and honest, neutral cheeks. After 1 minute, smiles cautiously returned in halves. They weren't perfect, but they were attempted. The king collapsed dramatically in his royal beanbag. "I felt invisible. It was truly horrifying." His prime advisor whispered near his shoulder, "Majesty." They looked strangely peaceful during silence. The king snapped, eyes wild with glitter. "Peaceful is dangerous. It encourages free thought." That night, a new emergency law passed. Mandatory random smile checks during public hours. Guards carried flashcards with government-approved jokes. Failure to laugh resulted in aggressive tickling. Finley was stopped twice during banana purchasing. He sneezed instead of laughing. Got applauded. Norah was fined for slow emotional blinking. She paid using expired glitter-based currency. The still gathered again beneath the moonlight. They brought candied almonds and mild resistance plans. Finley raised his glass and declared proudly, "To one glorious minute of collective honesty," Norah added, "and maybe 2 next year." They all cheered with subtle facial muscles. They launched a second wave called Operation Shrug. Whenever asked anything, shrug softly and walk. No yelling, no slogans, just personal ambiguity. Markets echoed with synchronized apathy responses. Guards questioned citizens. Citizens replied with nuance. The king saw footage and screamed instantly. "What is this emotion? I don't know!" His tech team mumbled nervously under breath. "Unclassified reaction. No emoji matches that mood." He yelled into a leftover birthday balloon. It popped with disappointing symbolic indifference sound. The still expected more laws and glitter arrests. But they also saw growing national stillness. People were breathing between expectations more often. Public spaces grew oddly comfortable with silence. Children frowned without consequence or performance fear. Grandparents chuckled without citation from official scripts. Even the pigeons blinked at a reasonable rate. The kingdom trembled slightly in collective hesitation. Not with fear, but with new possibility. The king stared into his royal mirror. It didn't smile. He nearly panicked. "Smile, you silly glass," he shouted. But the mirror reflected only truth. His grin twitched. His hair drooped. His crown leaned slightly left, disturbing. He summoned the royal joy advisor. She brought balloons and emergency glitter. "Your Majesty," she said with concern, "have you smiled today from the heart?" He growled, "My heart follows policy, not passion." She left, quietly sobbing behind her clipboard. In town, the smiles grew slower. Not gone, just gently misplaced sometimes. Finley noticed it while buying celery. The grocer didn't say, "Cheer up." Norah noticed it at the bookstore. A customer giggled without full teeth. It was happening. Natural expression. Real reactions blooming like cautious flowers. The still held a meeting in daylight. Nobody wore disguises. Nobody giggled falsely. Finley said, "The people are waking up." Norah replied, "Their cheeks need rest too." At the palace, bells rang softly. Not alarms, just confused celebration chimes. A pigeon delivered the day's news. Smile participation down by 7%. The king threw soup at the pigeon. It dodged with alarming grace. "Summon the Minister of Mood," he yelled. The minister arrived carrying a ukulele. "My liege," he whispered nervously, "people are smiling differently these days." The king narrowed his eyes sharply. "Are they using irony again?" "No," the minister gulped. "Just honesty." The king paced the royal hallway. He passed a painting of himself smiling. It mocked him with perfect dimples. He ripped it down in rage. Behind it was a tiny door. Curious, he opened it slowly. Inside was a quiet stone bench, a cup of tea, a book. He sat, confused but intrigued. The book was titled, "Let Go." Back outside, a celebration was brewing. Not official, just spontaneous smiling day. No parades, no assigned jokes, just dancing, some bread, and normal laughter. The king stared from his balcony. He watched a child fall, then giggle. No guards rushed in, no ticket given. The child simply stood and laughed again. "What is this?" "Freedom," the king asked. Nobody answered. It wasn't a question. He wandered the palace halls alone, past portraits of forcibly smiling ancestors. He whispered, "What if they were wrong?" One statue seemed to nod slightly. He stumbled into the garden quietly. No music, no clowns, just breeze. Finley found him sitting on grass. Norah followed, holding fresh pastries. "Are you lost, Majesty?" she teased. The king sighed and shook his head. "No," he replied, "just untitled emotion." They sat beside him in silence. No cameras, no confetti, just air. Finley offered him a cheese roll. He accepted, chewed thoughtfully, swallowed honesty. Then he smiled, small, uneven, absolutely real. Birds didn't sing. Angels didn't descend. But something beautiful did happen. He didn't fake it. Later that week, he addressed Everjoy. No speechwriters, no sparkle scripts, just voice. "My people," he began, trembling slightly. "Your frowns are not treason anymore." Gasps echoed across rooftops and bakeries. "Your sighs are sacred, your tears valid." A grandmother fainted, gently and peacefully. Two teenagers hugged without excessive jazz hands. The new law passed unanimously by shrug. Smiling became a personal matter again. The Smile Patrol was reassigned immediately. They now delivered soup and compliments. Statues of the king were altered. Now he had one raised eyebrow. Finley opened a school for emotions. Subjects, expression, eyebrow theory, thoughtful sarcasm. Norah taught creative silence and cake. Her class was always full, always quiet. The king took up watercolor painting. He specialized in confused vegetables. One tomato had a midlife crisis. The onion simply stared into space. Years passed. No rebellions, no screaming cheer, just balance, just quiet honesty. And on the king's final birthday, he invited everyone for a silent picnic. They brought snacks, blankets, mixed feelings. He thanked them all with soft applause. Then he stood, smiled one last time, and whispered, "Be exactly as you are." Everjoy wept gently, without guilt. Then they laughed, fully, without force. Everjoy no longer required painted grins. No more glitter fines. No more fake cheer. People smiled, or didn't, without fear. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they just breathed. Finley planted a garden of neutral flowers. Norah taught workshops in honest expression theory. The king retired to a cottage quietly. He now smiled only when surprised naturally. Guards took up knitting and quiet jazz. Even pigeons delivered letters with calm dignity. The streets echoed with something new. Sincerity. And for the first time in history, Everjoy finally lived up to its name.